What's up, everybody out there? I need to have another Bible study for another chapter in Genesis that really used to have me when I was a kid. Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's so many crazy things in the Bible when you really look at them and read them. But Genesis 38. So Genesis 38 kind of just comes out of nowhere, right? So when I was young and I was in the Kingdom Hall, I remember when I first read this, because I used to like just read the Bible on my own without it being like the chapter we were reading that week or whatever. I used to just read it. But I remember when I first read it, I remember just being confused, like what's going on, and trying to get, a brother to explain it to me in a kind of a PG way was just funny as I think back and look back at it. But Genesis 38 is about Judah. So Judah, he goes and he finds a wife, and then he marries her, has 3 kids with her. He names them Onan, and Shelah, I think. So that's his 3 kids. So Er's the oldest. So then he goes and he finds a wife for his oldest son, So we don't learn a whole bunch about in Genesis. All we know is that he was evil and God killed him. That's it. So he got married. The wife's name was Tamar. So he got married to Tamar. He was evil. God killed him. That's it. So I wish there was more to know about But so the custom at the time was that if a wife lost her husband and there was an older brother in that family, they were supposed to marry the widow. So then the brother comes, Onan comes, and he marries Tamar. I guess he was kind of pushing back on her a little bit. He didn't want to have a kid with her because he knew it rightfully should be his brother's kid, but he married her anyway. But here's the kicker. So when they consummated the marriage, he didn't finish the deed while, I'm trying to keep it real PG and family friendly. He didn't finish the deed while the deed was supposed to finish. He pulled out and he spilled his manly juices onto the ground. And so apparently this made God really mad. He didn't do it because he didn't want to get her pregnant, but this made God really mad. So God killed him too. He's dead. So God was not playing back in those days, man. He was like, what? You gonna finish on the ground? You gonna pull out? Die. You know what I mean? He wasn't playing around. But so there was only one son left. So Judah's like, man, I got one son left. The last son wasn't grown yet. So he went to Tamar and said, Tamar, Sheila's not old enough to get married yet. So here's what we're gonna do. I want you to go ahead back to your father's house, get the hell out of here, go back to your father's house, and just live as a widow. And when Sheila's old enough to marry you, I'll bring him down there and we'll go ahead and hook it up. No problem. Just go ahead and we'll see you later. Bounce. You know what I mean? So Tamar was like, okay, that's a good plan. And she went down there and she's waiting for Sheila to grow up. And so Sheila grows up. He becomes old enough to marry her, but he don't never come get her. So she's sitting down, Tamar sitting down at her dad's house like, man, any year now, I'm supposed to be getting married again to the 3rd son. What's going on? And so she started to realize I got played. They just wanted to get rid of me. So they told me come down here. I got played. So Judah, as some time passed, his wife died. And for some reason, they wanted to let us know he was going up to shear the sheep, I think is what he was going to. He was going to shear his sheep. And someone from the village came and told Tamar, hey, your father-in-law is going up to shear the sheep. He's on the road walking up there. And so somehow she knew he would want a prostitute. Why she knew that, I don't know. So she devised this plan where she was going to throw her widow's clothes off and put on, some prostitute clothes and cover her face up and everything, and then go wait on the side of the road because she knew when Judah came along, he was going to want a prostitute. And so she's on the side of the road. Sure enough, here comes Judah. And Judah sees her. He couldn't see her face or nothing. But my man must have really needed it bad because he didn't need to. He was just like, please. I think the exact words in the Bible was, I pray for you to come lie with me. So basically come have sex with me. And so she was like, well, what you gonna pay me? And he said, I think he said, I give you a kid, which I'm not a farmer, but I think that is a baby goat, right? It's not a sheep. I think it's a baby goat. So he said, I give you a baby goat if you come and have sex with me. So as a little sidebar, that created so many questions in my head. Like, was that like the normal rate a prostitute would get back then? Like, you just get a goat? So there had to be like some prostitute farm somewhere with like a whole bunch of goats. And I just wondered, like, was there a pimp? Like, you only brought 3 goats home today, come here. And you know, I just wonder all those little things that like used to take place. But I digress. Back to the story. So he said, I'm gonna give you a goat, a baby goat. And so she said, I don't believe you. I need to know that you're really going to pay me, because you don't have a baby goat with you right now. So give me something you have now, and I'm going to hold it as collateral, basically. And so he looked around. He said, well, I got these jewels. I got this stick. You know, is that what you want? She said, yeah, give me the jewels, give me the stick, and I'll go ahead and have sex with you. And then you send the goat later. You send the kid later, and I'll give you back your stuff. So they go off. They have sex. They agree to those terms. They have sex, and he impregnates her. So she leaves. She gets up. She leaves and goes back to her father's house, and he goes on along the way to his sheep. Takes off her prostitute clothes, put back on her widow clothes. So he gets to where he's going, and he told his assistant, like, hey man, I need you to take this little baby goat down there. Find the prostitute, because apparently there's only one prostitute, right? So he's like, go to the town, find the one prostitute, give her this baby goat, and get my jewels back and my stick, because that was the agreement. So his boy goes down there and looks around. He can't find her, so he goes to the men of the town. He says, hey, where's the prostitute at? Again, there was only one prostitute somehow. And they're like, there is no prostitute here, man. You're tripping. Go on back where you came from. So he goes back to Judah, and he's like, hey, I went down there. There's no prostitute. So I don't know what's going on, but there's just not a prostitute there. So I guess at that point, they were just like, oh, well, it is what it is. But then word came to Judah, you know, soon after that. I think it was like 3 months later, maybe, because I think she was like 3 months pregnant. Word came to Judah that his daughter-in-law, Tamar, had taken to prostitution, and now she was pregnant, which was, I guess, dishonorable to his name, because she still was technically his daughter-in-law, even though he didn't bring his third son to marry her. And so he sends his people down and says, hey, y'all got to bring her here. They were going to kill her. I think they were going to burn her. But they said, bring her up here. She needs to be burned. So never mind the fact, you know, this is how bad women used to get done in the Bible. She's off doing that. She needs to be burned. He's paying for, you know, sex with prostitutes with baby goats, and he's just cool. It's okay. That's another topic though. But they bring her up to Judah, and he's like, ha, Tamar, you're a prostitute now. You got pregnant. Clearly we can see you're pregnant. You're about to be burned. And she says, hold up. I got to tell everybody something. The man who these jewels and this stick belong to is the man who I'm pregnant by. So does anyone here know who that belongs to? And he looked around like, oh snap. Those are mine. Wait a minute. Then he starts to put 2 and 2 together. And he's like, oh, you were the prostitute. I'm the dad. And then he told his men not to kill her, because he was more dishonorable for not bringing his third son to her to marry, which he basically didn't do because he didn't want him to die, because every son that got married to her died, right? God just says, I'm having a bad day, die. So he didn't want his third son to be murdered, so he didn't bring his third son to her. But he's more dishonorable than she is for being a prostitute, so she gets to live. So somehow it all makes sense, like tricking him into sex and becoming a prostitute for a day and him lying, and all this stuff ends up making sense. And they end up having 2 kids. You know what I mean? So, hey, it all worked out in the long run. You know, Judah was an important part of lineage down the line, leading to, you know, all the other important people. But just one of those weird stories in Genesis. And right after, like in chapter 39, it gets back to the regularly scheduled program. Like, it goes from 37, it stops tells us this side story about what happened with Judah and Tamar in 38. Then 39 goes right back to what it was talking about. Crazy stuff, man. One of those weird stories in the Bible that I really, that were kind of funny to me, you know, growing up. But it's just like one of those weird things, like, because I'm a visual person. So when I'm reading the stories, I'm like playing out the visuals in my head of what it looked like. And it's funny when you think about how it would look today. You know what I mean? Just another little Bible story with Vill. I appreciate your time. Send me an email if you ever want to talk. Y'all have a good day.